The power of owning your story, breaking silence, building wealth. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you stopped hiding the parts of yourself that feel too messy, too complicated, or too unprofessional to share? What wealth might be waiting on the other side of that silence? I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Jeanette Irvin, a visionary truth teller whose work has transformed the landscape for Black professionals across America. Jeanette isn't just a thought leader, she's a soul excavator, helping people unearth the buried treasures within their most difficult experiences. Her profound insights on owning your story as the foundation of true wealth have created a revolution of authenticity that's rippling through boardrooms, startups, and corporate hallways where Black excellence has too often been muted. The question that kept emerging from our conversation was deceptively simple, yet radically powerful. What happens when we stop editing ourselves out of our own stories? For many Black professionals, we've mastered the art of strategic silence. We've learned which parts of ourselves to highlight and which to carefully tuck away. We've become experts at code switching, at making others comfortable, at downplaying our struggles while highlighting our resilience. It's a sophisticated dance, one that many of us have been performing since childhood. But at what cost? That silence, that careful curation of self creates a prison, a gilded one, perhaps, but a prison nonetheless. And the jailer, often it's our own fear. When we met, Jeanette shared something that stopped me in my tracks. The parts of your story you're most afraid to tell are often the very parts that hold your greatest power. Let that sink in for a moment. Those experiences you've been minimizing, the struggles you've been hiding, the parts of your journey that don't fit neatly into your LinkedIn profile, they're not liabilities, they're assets, they're not weaknesses. They're sources of untapped strength. Through our conversation, three powerful truths emerge that I'm compelled to share with you today. First, truth telling transforms trauma into triumph. When we break the silence around our experiences as Black professionals, we convert our wounds into wisdom. This radical act of owning our narrative creates the foundation for authentic success. It's alchemy, turning the lead of painful experiences into the gold of insight. Second, vulnerability is not weakness, but power. Many Black professionals navigate workplaces where vulnerability is mistaken for weakness and our emotions are policed. By embracing vulnerability and sharing our stories, we reclaim our power and create space for others to do the same. The very thing we've been taught to hide becomes our greatest strength. And third, community is essential for healing and growth. Isolation can be a prison that prevents us from recognizing that our struggles aren't unique. Building intentional community allows us to validate our experiences, celebrate our achievements, and find the support needed to thrive. We heal better together than we do alone. These aren't just nice ideas, they're transformative practices that are changing lives right now. Consider Letitia Clark, founder of the Pink Parachute Diaries podcast. Letitia witnessed a disturbing pattern in corporate America: talented Black women receiving pink slips while mediocre men floated away on golden parachutes. But what struck her most wasn't just the injustice of the outcomes, it was the silence surrounding them. Black women professionals were suffering in isolation, believing their struggles were uniquely theirs, with no community to validate their experiences. The silence wasn't just uncomfortable, it was creating a prison of isolation, a cage of maybe it's just me. So, what did Letitia do? She built a platform dedicated to breaking this silence by documenting and sharing journeys of resilience, authenticity, and perseverance. The podcast has become a revolutionary space where authentic stories can be shared without censorship, where the unspoken finally finds voice. One listener wrote to Letitia expressing how the platform has validated their experiences and created a sense of community that was previously missing. For the first time, they wrote, I don't feel crazy for what I've experienced. I don't feel alone. I feel seen in ways I never thought possible. That's the power of owning your story. It doesn't just heal you, it creates ripples of healing for others. It transforms not just individual lives, but entire communities. Or take Sharita Flores, whose work on truth telling and community building demonstrates how transformative authentic storytelling can be. As Black professionals, truth telling comes with unique risks in workplaces where vulnerability is often mistaken for weakness, where emotions are policed, and where one wrong move can reinforce stereotypes we've spent careers trying to dismantle. Sharita navigated workplaces where angry Black woman had become shorthand for any display of justified emotion. Yet she recognized that continuing to remain silent was more damaging than speaking up. The cost of that silence was becoming too high, not just for her career, but for her soul. She powerfully articulated that silence serves no one, especially not ourselves. Through sharing her story and connecting with others, Sharita turned wounds into wisdom, created lasting change, and demonstrated that we are never alone on the journey to wholeness. Her work has shown how sharing your story and connecting with others can transform not just individual lives, but create ripples of change throughout professional communities. One conversation at a time, one truth at a time, she's changing the landscape for Black professionals. And then there's Jacqueline M., who explored how redefining success can empower Black professionals to thrive without sacrificing their mental health, identity, or peace. Many Black professionals chase conventional definitions of success while carrying unaddressed trauma, shame, or survival stories that keep them stuck in cycles of burnout and disconnection. Jacqueline had achieved what many would consider success by conventional standards, the title, the salary, the corner office, but found herself increasingly disconnected from her purpose and identity. The turning point came when she began to examine and own the parts of her story she had been hiding or minimizing. She advocated for a radical approach to healing that begins with owning one's complete story, including the messy parts, as the foundation for authentic success. By redefining success on her own terms, Jacqueline created a sustainable approach to achievement that honors her whole self and preserves her mental health. Her work has sparked conversations about what true success looks like for Black professionals when it's built on a foundation of wholeness rather than fragmentation. These stories, Letitia's, Sharita's, Jacqueline's, they're not outliers. They're evidence of a powerful truth that Jeanette Irvin articulated so beautifully in our interview. Your story, in its complete and unedited form, is the foundation of your true wealth. But let's be honest, owning your story isn't easy. It requires courage, it requires vulnerability, it requires a willingness to risk being seen, truly seen, perhaps for the first time. And for Black professionals, that risk is compounded by systems that weren't designed for our success, by stereotypes that police our expression, by workplaces that reward conformity over authenticity. So, how do we begin? How do we take that first step toward owning our stories in all their complexity? It starts with a simple but profound practice that Jeanette shared: truth telling. Identify one aspect of your story you've been hiding or minimizing, whether in your professional bio, your networking conversations, or even in how you explain your career path to yourself. Write it down, speak it aloud to yourself, then share it with one trusted person. And notice how owning This part of your story shifts your relationship to your work and your sense of possibility. This isn't about trauma dumping, but about strategic vulnerability that creates authentic connection and unlocks your power. As Jeanette reminded me, the truth you're afraid to tell is often the bridge to the community you're longing to find. When we hide parts of our story, we don't just disconnect from ourselves, we disconnect from the very people who might understand us most deeply, who might support us most powerfully, who might celebrate us most authentically. The isolation that comes from silence is a particular burden for Black professionals. We're often already the only one in our workplaces, already navigating spaces where our presence is both hyper visible and invisible at the same time. That isolation can make us believe that our struggles are unique to us, that we're the only ones feeling inadequate, the only ones battling imposter syndrome, the only ones code switching until we forget which version of ourselves is real. But when we begin to share our stories, when we begin to own the fullness of our experiences, something remarkable happens. We discover we're not alone. We discover that our struggles aren't signs of our inadequacy, but evidence of the systems we're navigating. We discover that our resilience isn't just personal, it's collective. As Jeanette so powerfully articulated, your story isn't just yours. It's a thread in a larger tapestry of Black excellence, resilience, and truth telling. When you own your story, you don't just transform your own relationship to success, you create possibility for others. You become a beacon for those still finding their way through silence. You become evidence that authenticity isn't just possible, it's powerful. This is what Jeanette Irvin's work has illuminated so brilliantly, that owning your story isn't just about personal healing, though it is certainly that. It's about collective liberation. It's about creating new definitions of success that don't require us to fragment ourselves. It's about building wealth that isn't just financial, but spiritual, emotional, and communal. So I challenge you today, stop hiding, stop editing, stop believing that your worth depends on presenting only your most polished self to the world. Your wounds are not shameful secrets to be hidden, they are portals to your most authentic power. Your struggles are not failures, they are the very foundation of your unique contribution to this world. What part of your story have you been afraid to own? What truth have you been silencing? What might be possible if you brought that truth into the light? The world doesn't need more perfectly curated professionals. It needs more truth tellers, more bridge builders, more people brave enough to say, this is who I am. This is what I've experienced. This is what I know to be true. Your complete story, not just the highlight reel, is your most valuable asset. It's the source of your most profound insights, your deepest connections, your most meaningful work. Own it, speak it, live it, and watch as doors you never even knew existed begin to open. Because when you own your story, you don't just change your life, you change the lives of everyone brave enough to follow your lead. You create spaces where others can finally exhale, finally be seen, finally thrive. This is how we transform not just our careers, but our communities. This is how we build wealth that can't be measured in dollars, but in depth, in connection, in authenticity. This is how we change the world. One truth, one story, one act of courage at a time. What truth will you tell today?